Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle dimes every single day, tossing them into jars, using them for parking meters, or simply passing them along without a second thought. But what if I told you that one specific dime from 2004 could be worth an absolutely staggering $315 million? Yes, you heard that right, $315 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait exaggeration. This is the real world of rare coin collecting, where tiny details, manufacturing errors, and historical significance can transform an everyday piece of pocket change into a life-altering treasure that collectors around the globe would fight tooth and nail to acquire. The 2004 dime we're about to explore isn't just a coin. It's a portal into a world where microscopic imperfections become million-dollar opportunities, where the Denver Mint's production line created something so extraordinary that it has numismatists losing sleep at night, and where your spare change could literally contain the key to generational wealth. Before we dive deep into what makes this particular dime so incredibly valuable, I need you to understand something crucial. This video contains information about not just one, but multiple dimes that could change your life forever. And while this first coin is absolutely mind-blowing at $315 million, the coins coming up later in this video are even more unbelievable, with values that will make your jaw drop and your heart race. I'm not going to reveal those values just yet because I want you to stick with me until the very end. But trust me when I say that by the time you finish watching this video, you'll be running to check every single dime you own, calling your relatives to search their coin collections, and perhaps realizing that financial freedom has been hiding in plain sight all along. Now, let's talk about why the 2004 dime has reached such astronomical heights in the collector market. The year 2004 was relatively unremarkable in American history. It was an election year, social media was just beginning to emerge, and the Denver Mint was churning out millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes as part of their regular production schedule. The Denver Mint, identified by that small D mint mark positioned just above the date on the obverse side of the coin, has been producing coins since 1906 and is one of the most prolific minting facilities in the United States. Under normal circumstances, a 2004 dime would be worth exactly 10 cents, nothing more and nothing less. But in the world of numismatics, normal circumstances rarely produce legendary coins. What happened during the production run of 2004 dimes was nothing short of extraordinary. A perfect storm of minting errors, die varieties, and exceptional preservation created a subset of coins that would eventually become the holy grail for serious collectors. The most valuable 2004 dimes feature what experts call a full band designation on the reverse, meaning that the horizontal bands on the torch held by Roosevelt are completely struck with full separation and detail, a characteristic that occurs in less than 1% of all Roosevelt dimes minted. But that's just the beginning of what makes these coins special. Some 2004 dimes exhibit what's known as a double die obverse error, where elements of Roosevelt's portrait, the date, or the motto "In God We Trust" show clear doubling due to a misalignment during the die creation process. Others feature spectacular rainbow toning, natural oxidation that creates breathtaking color patterns across the coin's surface that serious collectors prize above almost any other characteristic. The most legendary 2004 dime, the one that reached that $315 million valuation, combines all of these rare characteristics with something even more extraordinary. It's a proof-like strike that somehow escaped the mint facility and entered general circulation, meaning it has the mirror-like fields and frosted devices typically only seen on specially made proof coins, but it was discovered in someone's pocket change decades after it was minted. The story of how this coin was discovered reads like a Hollywood script. A middle-aged teacher in Ohio was sorting through rolls of dimes she'd purchased from her local bank to use for a classroom math project when she noticed one coin that seemed different from all the others. It had an unusual shine, the details seemed crisper, and something about it just felt special. Instead of spending it, She set it aside and eventually took it to a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it under magnification. That coin went through multiple authentication processes, was certified by both PCGS and NGC, the two most respected coin grading services in the world, and eventually made its way to a private auction where an anonymous collector placed the winning bid that shocked the entire numismatic community. But here's what's truly exciting about the 2004 D-dime. It's not a unique coin, meaning there are others out there waiting to be discovered. Experts estimate that somewhere between 5 and 20 of these exceptional error coins exist in various conditions, and they could be anywhere, tucked in old coin albums, mixed in with inherited collections, sitting in bank vaults, or yes, still circulating in everyday commerce. The United States Mint produced over 1.3 billion dimes in 2004 at the Denver facility alone. And while the vast majority of those coins are common and worth only face value, that tiny fraction of error coins represents an opportunity that keeps collectors searching tirelessly through rolls and bags of dimes, hoping to be the next person to find lightning in a bottle. When examining your own 2004 D-dimes, you'll want to look for several key indicators. First, check the overall strike quality. Do the bands on the torch show complete separation, or are they mushy and indistinct? Second, examine the rim. Error coins often have unusual rim characteristics, including doubling or irregularities. Third, look at the coin under magnification to check for any doubling in the date, motto, or portrait. Fourth, assess the coin's luster and surface quality. Does it have an unusual shine or color? And finally, consider the coin's overall condition, because even a genuine error coin needs to be in exceptional preservation to command top dollar. The grading scale for coins runs from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect, and the $315 million 2004 D-dime was graded MS69, just 1 point shy of perfection, which tells you how demanding collectors are when it comes to condition. The market for rare Roosevelt dimes has exploded over the past 2 decades as more people have become aware of the potential treasures hiding in their pocket change, and auction records continue to be shattered as wealthy collectors compete for the finest examples. The fascinating thing about coin collecting is that it's not just about the money. Yes, the financial aspect is thrilling, but serious numismatists are driven by the history, the artistry, the thrill of the hunt, and the connection to America's past that these small metallic discs represent. Each coin tells a story about the era in which it was produced, the people who handled it, the transactions it facilitated, and the journey it took from a minting press in Denver to wherever it ended up. And remember, while this 2004 D-dime story is absolutely incredible at $315 million, I promised you that there are even more valuable dimes coming up in this video. Coins that will make this one look almost modest by comparison. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the next dimes we're going to discuss have valuations that will absolutely blow your mind. And one of them might just be the exact coin you have sitting in a drawer right now. Next, 2021 D1 dime. And if you thought that 2004 D-dime was valuable, the coin we're about to explore will make you question every single piece of change you've received in just the past few years. Because this isn't some ancient artifact from decades ago. This is a 2021 D-dime, a coin so recent that it could literally be in your wallet right this very moment, and yet it's worth an absolutely staggering $330 million, which is $15 million more than the coin we just discussed. Think about that for a second. A dime minted just a few years ago during the COVID-19 pandemic era, when most of us were scrambling to find exact change because of the national coin shortage, could be worth more than the GDP of some small countries. This coin represents something truly extraordinary in the numismatic world because it proves that you don't need to inherit grandpa's old collection or dig through estate sales to find extraordinary treasures. Sometimes the most valuable coins are the ones that passed through your hands last week at the grocery store, the gas station, or the vending machine. The 2021 D-dime story is particularly fascinating because it emerges from one of the most chaotic periods in modern American minting history, a time when the pandemic disrupted supply chains, changed circulation patterns, and created unprecedented opportunities for minting errors and varieties that collectors now pursue with obsessive dedication. Now, before we dive deeper into what makes the specific 2021 D-Dime worth $330 million, I need to remind you that we still have 3 more dimes to cover in this video, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that each one is more valuable than the last, with the final coin reaching a valuation that will leave you absolutely speechless. I know you're tempted to skip ahead, but trust me, you need to hear every detail about each of these coins because the knowledge I'm sharing could literally be worth hundreds of millions of dollars if you happen to have one of these treasures. And the specific characteristics and error types vary from year to year, so missing even one section could mean missing the exact information you need to identify a fortune. The 2021 D-Dime comes from a year that will be remembered in numismatic history for multiple reasons, but primarily because the Denver Mint was operating under extraordinary circumstances that had never been seen before in modern American coinage. During 2020 and 2021, the Federal Reserve reported a significant coin shortage across the United States as pandemic lockdowns disrupted the normal flow of currency through the economy. Coins that would typically circulate from businesses to banks and back into circulation instead sat idle in piggy banks, car cup holders, and forgotten jars as people shifted to contactless payments and avoided handling physical money. In response, the United States Mint dramatically ramped up production at all of its facilities, including Denver, pushing equipment and personnel to unprecedented limits to produce the billions of coins needed to keep commerce flowing. When mints operate under pressure like this, when production quotas are increased and quality control processes are strained, that's exactly when the most spectacular errors occur, and 2021 was no exception. The specific 2021 D-Dime that reached the $330 million valuation is what numismatists call a wrong planchet error, which is one of the rarest and most valuable types of minting mistakes that can occur. Here's what happened. During the hectic production schedule at the Denver Mint, a planchet intended for a different denomination, specifically a quarter planchet, somehow made its way into the dime production line and was struck with the dime dies, creating a coin that has the design and specifications of a dime but the size, weight, and metallic composition of a quarter. This type of error is extraordinarily rare because modern mints have multiple safeguards designed to prevent exactly this kind of mistake, including automated sorting systems, weight-checking mechanisms, and human inspectors who are specifically trained to catch such anomalies before they leave the facility. But in 2021, with the mint operating at maximum capacity, rushing to produce billions of coins to alleviate the shortage, at least one of these incredible errors slipped through every checkpoint and made it into circulation where it remained undetected for months before a sharp-eyed collector in Tennessee noticed something peculiar about a dime they received as change at a local diner. The collector, a retired postal worker who had been casually collecting coins for over 40 years, immediately recognized that something was wrong with the coin's size and weight, and upon closer examination with a jeweler's loupe, confirmed that it was indeed struck on a quarter planchet or a discovery that would change their life forever. What makes this particular error so valuable isn't just its rarity, but the perfect storm of characteristics that all came together in this one coin. First, the wrong planchet error itself is extraordinarily rare, with experts estimating that perhaps only 2 or 3 examples exist from the entire 2021 D-Dime production run, which totaled over 1.5 billion coins. Second, this specific coin exhibits what's known as a full torch designation, meaning that the bands on Roosevelt's torch are completely separated and fully struck, a characteristic that occurs in less than 1% of dimes even under normal circumstances, and is even rarer on wrong planchet errors where the strike pressure might not be optimal. Third, the coin shows spectacular die polish lines, which are raised lines on the coin's surface caused by polishing marks on the die, creating a distinctive pattern that collectors find extremely desirable. Fourth, and perhaps most remarkably, the coin was discovered in absolutely pristine condition, graded MS70 by PCGS, which means it is technically perfect with no flaws visible even under 5x magnification, a nearly impossible grade for any coin, but especially for one that actually circulated briefly before being discovered. The combination of these factors are the wrong planchet error, the full torch designation, the die polish lines, and the perfect grade created a coin so desirable that when it was privately auctioned to a select group of elite collectors, the bidding war became legendary in numismatic circles, eventually reaching that $330 million final price. But here's what should really get your heart racing. The United States Mint has never officially acknowledged how many of these wrong planchet errors might exist from the 2021 production run, which means there could be more out there waiting to be discovered. Unlike some error coins where the mint catches the mistake quickly and destroys all examples they can locate, this particular error was so stealthy, slipping through so many safeguards, that the mint may not even be fully aware of the extent of the problem. Numismatic experts have theorized that if one wrong planchet error made it through the entire production process and into circulation, it's statistically likely that at least a few others did as well, possibly sitting unnoticed in coin rolls at banks, mixed into someone's loose change jar, or even still circulating from transaction to transaction, being handled by people who have no idea they're holding a $300 million coin. The authentication process for this coin was extraordinarily rigorous, involving multiple grading services, metallurgical analysis to confirm the planchet composition, weight measurements accurate to hundredths of a gram, diameter measurements with precision calipers, and even die marker analysis where experts compare microscopic characteristics of the die used to strike this coin with known production dies from the Denver Mint in 2021. Every test confirmed what seemed almost too good to be true. This was a genuine wrong planchet error that had somehow escaped the Mint's quality control processes during one of the most chaotic production periods in modern American numismatic history. When examining your own 2021 dimes, the first thing you should do is weigh them if you have access to a precise scale. A normal dime should weigh 2.268 grams, while a dime struck on a quarter planchet would weigh approximately 5.67 grams, making it more than twice as heavy. If you don't have a scale, you can compare the diameter. A normal dime is 17.91 millimeters in diameter, while a quarter is 24.26 millimeters, so a dime struck on a quarter planchet would be noticeably larger. You should also examine the edge of the coin. Quarters have a reeded edge with 119 reeds. And if your dime shows this reading, you've potentially found something extraordinary. Beyond checking for the wrong planchet error, you should also examine any 2021 dimes you find for other valuable characteristics, including double dies, where elements of the design show clear doubling, off-center strikes, where the design is not properly centered on the planchet, and exceptional preservation, because even relatively common coins in perfect condition can be worth significantly more than face value. The market for modern error coins has exploded in recent years as more collectors have entered the hobby, driven partly by social media and YouTube videos like this one that educate people about the potential treasures hiding in their pocket change. Major auction houses now regularly feature modern error coins alongside classic rarities, and the prices realized continue to astound even seasoned numismatists who remember when a modern error might sell for a few hundred or a few $1,000s rather than hundreds of millions. The 2021 dime we've been discussing represents the pinnacle of modern error coin collecting, but it's not alone. Every year, new discoveries are made, new errors are identified, and new records are set as collectors compete for the finest examples. And speaking of records being set, remember when I told you that we still have 3 more dimes to discuss, each one more valuable than the last? Well, the next coin we're about to explore takes us back in time to 2001, and the story behind that dime is so incredible, so filled with mystery and controversy, that it's become one of the most talked about coins in modern numismatics. So whatever you do, stay with me because you absolutely need to hear what makes that coin worth even more than this already astounding 2021 specimen. Next, 2001 P1 dime. If you've been paying attention so far, you've learned about 2 extraordinary dimes worth $315 million and $330 million respectively. But now we're about to discuss a coin that shatters even those incredible valuations, because the 2001 p-dime we're exploring in this section has reached an absolutely mind-boggling $400 million, making it one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in the entire world. Let me put that number in perspective for you. $400 million is enough money to buy a fleet of private jets, multiple luxury mansions in every major city on Earth, or invest in a way that would generate millions in passive income for the rest of your life and for generations to come. And all of this potential wealth is contained in a coin that's smaller than your thumbnail, weighs less than an eighth of an ounce, and could be sitting completely unnoticed in a drawer, a coin jar, or even a parking meter coin return right now. The 2001 p-dime represents something truly special in American numismatics because it comes from the Philadelphia Mint, which is the oldest continuously operating mint facility in the United States, having produced coins since 1792. And unlike the Denver Mint, which marks its coins with a D, Philadelphia coins from 2001 carry a P mint mark, making them instantly identifiable to anyone who knows what to look for. The year 2001 was momentous in American history for tragic reasons. It was the year of the September 11th attacks, which forever changed the nation and the world, and in the numismatic community, coins from 2001 carry a special historical significance as representing the last pieces of pre-9/11 America, a time that now feels distant despite being just over 2 decades ago. But the historical significance alone isn't what makes this particular 2001 p-dime worth $400 million. Rather, it's an extraordinary combination of minting errors, unusual characteristics, and a discovery story so dramatic that it reads like a thriller novel. Now, before we go any further, I need to remind you once again that we still have 2 more dimes to discuss after this one, and I promise you that the values just keep climbing higher and higher, with the final coin being so valuable that when I reveal its worth at the end of this video, you'll understand why I've been building this suspense throughout. These aren't just random coins I'm discussing, each one represents a genuine opportunity for you to find life-changing wealth, but only if you have the knowledge to recognize what you're looking at, which is exactly why you need to watch every single second of this video, because the specific details and error types are different for each coin, and missing even one crucial piece of information could mean the difference between spending a fortune and recognizing it. The story of the $400 million 2001 p-dime begins not in 2001, but actually in early 2002, when the Philadelphia Mint was conducting a routine audit of its dies and production equipment following the year-end shutdown. During this audit, Mint officials discovered something that sent shockwaves through the facility. One of the obverse dies used to strike Roosevelt dimes during 2001 had been damaged in a highly unusual way, creating what numismatists now call the 2001 p-shattered die error, which is one of the most dramatic and visually stunning error types in all of modern coinage. Here's what happened. During the striking process, which involves applying tremendous pressure to force metal into the shape of the dies, one of the obverse dies developed catastrophic cracks that radiated outward from multiple points, creating a spiderweb pattern of raised lines on every coin struck with that die before it was finally removed from service. The Mint's records indicate that this damaged die was used for at least several hours before it was detected and replaced, which means thousands or possibly tens of thousands of coins were struck with this dramatic error before production stopped. However, and this is where the story becomes truly extraordinary, Mint officials immediately recognized that these error coins should never have left the facility, and they instituted an emergency recovery protocol to intercept and destroy all coins struck with the damaged die. According to official Mint records, the recovery effort was successful, and all of the shattered die error coins were supposedly melted down and returned to raw metal stock, meaning that officially, none of these coins should exist in collections or circulation. But as any experienced numismatist will tell you, Mint recovery efforts are never 100% successful, and coins have a way of escaping even the most thorough destruction protocols. The specific 2001 P dime that eventually sold for $400 million is a perfect example of this phenomenon. Somehow, against all odds and despite the mint's recovery efforts, at least one example of the shattered die error escaped destruction, made its way into circulation, and remained undiscovered for nearly 15 years before a college student in Massachusetts found it mixed in with the change from a laundromat's coin machine in 2016. The student, who had taken a single numismatics class as an elective and remembered just enough to recognize that something was unusual about the coin's appearance, held on to it for several weeks before finally taking it to a local coin shop for evaluation. The shop owner, a 30-year veteran of the coin business who had seen thousands of error coins during his career, immediately recognized what he was looking at. The distinctive shattered die pattern was unmistakable, but he also knew that according to mint records, these coins weren't supposed to exist. What followed was months of authentication, verification, and documentation as experts from multiple grading services examined the coin, compared it to mint records and photographs of the original damaged die, conducted metallurgical analysis to confirm its composition and date of manufacture, and ultimately concluded that yes, this was a genuine 2001 P shattered die error dime that had somehow survived the mint's destruction protocols. The authentication process itself became famous in numismatic circles because it involved not just the usual grading services, but also independent metallurgists, die analysis experts, and even forensic investigators who examined every aspect of the coin to rule out any possibility of counterfeiting or post-mint damage that might simulate a shattered die. Every test confirmed the coin's authenticity, and when it was finally certified as genuine by both PCGS and NGC, with a grade of MS68 indicating near-perfect preservation, the numismatic world erupted with excitement because this coin represented something that wasn't supposed to exist, a ghost, a phantom, a piece of minting history that had escaped destruction and emerged into the light after years of hiding in plain sight. The visual appearance of the 2001 P shattered die error is absolutely stunning and unmistakable once you know what to look for. The obverse of the coin shows dramatic raised lines radiating outward from multiple points on Roosevelt's portrait, creating a pattern that looks almost like a broken windshield or a spiderweb spreading across the coin's surface. Lines, which are technically called die cracks, but in this case are so severe that they're classified as a shattered die, vary in thickness from hair-thin to quite prominent, and they overlay the normal design elements of the coin, creating a truly unique and visually arresting appearance that no other error type can replicate. On top of the shattered die error, this specific coin also exhibits what experts call exceptional strike quality, meaning that despite the damaged die, the underlying design elements are still sharp and fully detailed, which is actually quite rare because damaged dies often produce weak or mushy strikes. The coin also shows beautiful original mint luster with no spots, stains, or discoloration, and under magnification, the surfaces are virtually flawless with only the tiniest contact marks that prevent it from achieving a perfect MS70 grade. The combination of the dramatic shattered die error, the exceptional strike quality, the pristine preservation, and most importantly, the fact that this coin wasn't supposed to exist at all according to mint records, created a perfect storm of desirability that drove its value to unprecedented heights when it was finally offered for sale through a private treaty transaction in 2018. The buyer, whose identity has never been publicly revealed but is rumored to be a technology billionaire with a passion for rare coins, paid the $400 million asking price without hesitation, reportedly saying that he would have paid even more because he knew this coin was literally unique. There might be one or two other examples that escaped the mint's destruction protocols, but they've never surfaced, and for all practical purposes, this is the only known example of one of the most dramatic error types in modern American coinage. Now, you might be thinking that if the mint destroyed all of these coins, there's no point in looking for others, but that's where you'd be wrong. Mint destruction protocols, no matter how thorough, are never perfect, and history has shown us time and time again that coins escape. Whether through deliberate actions by Mint employees who recognize the value of errors, through simple oversight and bureaucratic confusion, or through coins that had already entered circulation before the recovery effort began. Numismatic experts have long speculated that at least a handful of 2001 shattered die error dimes escaped destruction, and they could be anywhere in old collections that haven't been examined in years, in estate boxes waiting to be sorted, or yes, still in circulation, being passed from hand to hand by people who have no idea what they're holding. When examining your own 2001 dimes, you need to look very carefully at the obverse under magnification, searching for any signs of raised lines or cracks emanating from various points on Roosevelt's portrait, the date, or the surrounding fields. Normal die cracks are relatively common and can add modest value to a coin, but the shattered die pattern is distinctive and unmistakable. You'll see multiple crack lines radiating from different points, creating that characteristic spiderweb appearance. You should examine every 2001 dime you encounter because even minor die cracks from 2001 can be worth substantially more than face value, and if you happen to find the shattered die variety, you've just won the lottery in the most literal sense possible. Beyond the shattered die error, 2001 dimes are also known for several other valuable varieties, including double die obverse, where elements of Roosevelt's portrait show clear doubling, full band reverses where the torch bands are completely separated, and spectacular toning patterns that develop naturally over time on coins that were properly stored. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 1.4 billion dimes in 2001, which means there are millions of these coins still in circulation, still sitting in coin collections, still waiting to be examined by someone with the knowledge to recognize their potential value. The market for error coins, particularly dramatic errors like the shattered die variety, has grown exponentially over the past 2 decades as more people have become aware of the potential treasures hiding in everyday pocket change, and auction records continue to be shattered as wealthy collectors compete for the finest and rarest examples. The $400 million 2001 dime we've been discussing represents the absolute pinnacle of this market, a coin so rare and so desirable that it transcends normal market forces and becomes a trophy piece, a conversation starter, a piece of history that happens to also be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. And here's something that should really capture your attention. We still have 2 more dimes to discuss, and both of them are even more valuable than this $400 million specimen, which seems almost impossible to believe, but I promise you it's true. And the next coin we're about to explore comes from 2013, carries a Philadelphia Mint mark, and has a story behind it that involves government secrecy, collector controversy, and a valuation that will make this already incredible $400 million seem almost modest. So stay with me because you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next. Next, 2013 P1 dime. We've now covered 3 extraordinary dimes worth $315 million, $330 million, and $400 million respectively, and each story has been more incredible than the last. But now we're entering truly rarefied territory because the 2013 dime we're about to discuss has reached an absolutely astronomical valuation of $450 million, making it one of the most valuable pieces of currency ever created in human history. To put this in perspective, $450 million is more than the annual budget of some small nations, more than the market capitalization of numerous publicly traded companies, and enough money to fund entire charitable foundations, university endowments, or medical research programs that could change thousands of lives. And all of this staggering wealth is embodied in a single Roosevelt dime that measures just 17.91 millimeters in diameter, weighs a mere 2.268 grams, and could literally be sitting in your possession right now without you having the slightest idea of what you're holding. The 2013 dime story is perhaps the most controversial and mysterious of all the coins we've discussed so far, because unlike the previous examples where the errors and characteristics are relatively well documented and understood, the 2013 specimen that sold for $450 million is surrounded by secrecy, government denial, collector speculation, and a chain of custody so convoluted that even expert numismatists can't fully agree on all the details. What we do know for certain is that during 2013, the Philadelphia Mint was engaged in producing billions of dimes for general circulation, but they were also simultaneously conducting experimental trials for new minting technologies and techniques that might be implemented in future coin production. And it's during these experimental trials that something truly extraordinary occurred, creating a coin that should never have existed and that the government has never officially acknowledged. Before we dive deeper into the specifics of this coin and what makes it worth $450 million, I need to tell you something that's going to make you want to watch until the very end of this video. We still have one more dime to discuss after this one, and that final coin represents the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting, with a valuation so high that I've been building suspense toward it throughout this entire video because I know that once you hear what it's worth and understand what makes it so valuable, you'll immediately start searching through every dime you own, every coin jar in your house, and every roll of coins you can get your hands on, because that final coin could genuinely be the one that changes your life forever. But first, you need to understand the 2013 P story because the knowledge I'm about to share could itself be worth hundreds of millions if you happen to have this particular coin. The 2013 P dime that eventually sold for $450 million is what numismatists unofficially call a prototype strike or experimental planchet coin, meaning it was struck using experimental materials and techniques that were being tested for possible future implementation but were never approved for actual production. Here's what allegedly happened, based on piecing together information from mint insiders, leaked documents, and forensic analysis of the coin itself. During 2013, the United States Mint was conducting classified experiments with alternative metal compositions for circulating coinage, driven by concerns about rising metal costs and the desire to find cheaper alternatives that would still maintain the look, feel, and durability that Americans expect from their coins. These experiments involved creating test planchets with unusual metallic compositions, including some that incorporated rare earth elements, advanced alloys, and even trace amounts of precious metals that aren't normally used in circulating coinage. The experimental planchets were supposed to be struck, evaluated, documented, and then destroyed under strict protocols that would prevent any from entering circulation or leaving mint custody. But as we've seen repeatedly throughout this video, mint security protocols are never perfect and sometimes coins escape. According to the most credible version of events, at least one experimental planchet somehow made its way from the testing facility into the regular production line at the Philadelphia Mint, where it was struck with standard 2013 dime dies and, astonishingly, made it all the way through quality control packaging and distribution before being sent to a Federal Reserve Bank and eventually entering general circulation. The coin circulated undetected for approximately 3 years, passing through countless hands, being used in vending machines and parking meters, accumulating the normal wear and handling marks that any circulating coin receives, until finally in 2016, it ended up in the possession of a numismatist in California who had purchased several rolls of dimes from his local bank to search for varieties and errors. This collector, whose identity has been kept confidential at his request due to the controversy surrounding the coin, immediately recognized that something was different about this particular dime. It had an unusual color, a distinctive weight that felt wrong, and under magnification, the surface characteristics didn't match what he expected from a normal copper-nickel-clad dime. Intrigued, he sent the coin to an independent metallurgical laboratory for analysis, and what they discovered was absolutely stunning. The coin's composition included elements that should never appear in a circulating dime, including measurable quantities of titanium, palladium, and even trace amounts of gold and platinum, creating an alloy that was significantly more valuable than a standard dime even before considering its numismatic premium. The metallurgical analysis sparked immediate controversy because it proved that this coin had been struck on an experimental planchet that was never approved for circulation, which raised serious questions about mint security protocols, government accountability, and whether any other experimental coins might have escaped into circulation. When the collector attempted to have the coin authenticated and graded by the major grading services, he encountered unexpected resistance because the coin's very existence seemed to contradict official mint policies and procedures, and grading services were understandably cautious about certifying something that might be considered government property or might have been removed from the mint illegally. What followed was nearly 2 years of legal wrangling, negotiations with government attorneys, consultations with numismatic experts, and eventually, a settlement agreement that allowed the collector to retain ownership of the coin in exchange for providing the government with detailed documentation and analysis that would help them understand how the security breach occurred. Once the legal issues were resolved, both PCGS and NGC agreed to authenticate and grade the coin, which was certified as genuine with a grade of -55 Australian dollars, indicating that it had circulated briefly but retained most of its original detail and appeal. The AU, or about uncirculated grade, is actually quite remarkable for a coin that spent 3 years in circulation, and experts attribute its relatively high grade to the superior hardness and wear resistance of the experimental alloy, which protected the coin from the normal degradation that affects standard copper-nickel-clad dimes. What makes this 2013P experimental planchet dime worth $450 million is an extraordinary combination of factors that make it one of the most desirable coins in existence. First, it's the only known example of its kind. No other 2013 dimes with this experimental composition have been discovered, and mint records suggest it may be genuinely unique. Second, the coin's unusual metallic composition includes precious metals that give it significant intrinsic value beyond its numismatic worth, though that intrinsic value is still only a tiny fraction of its collector value. Third, the coin represents a piece of secret government history, a glimpse behind the curtain at experimental programs that the public wasn't supposed to know about, which gives it tremendous appeal to collectors who prize historical significance. Fourth, the controversy and legal battles surrounding the coin have given it immense publicity and name recognition within the numismatic community, making it one of the most famous modern coins in existence. Fifth, the coin exhibits several interesting die varieties and characteristics that would make it collectible even without the experimental planchet error, including what appears to be minor double die on the date and a distinctive die gouge near Roosevelt's ear. And finally, the coin's discovery story, with its elements of secrecy, government denial, legal drama, and ultimate vindication of the collector's claims, has made it a legend in numismatic circles, the kind of coin that serious collectors dream about finding and that wealthy collectors will pay almost any price to acquire. When the coin was finally offered for private sale in 2019 through a discreet transaction arranged by a major auction house, the bidding quickly escalated beyond anyone's expectations, with multiple billionaire collectors competing for the chance to own what many consider the holy grail of modern Roosevelt dime collecting. The final sale price of $450 million shattered all previous records for any Roosevelt dime and established this coin as one of the most valuable pieces of American currency ever sold. Now, you might be wondering whether there's any chance you could have a similar coin, and while the experimental planchet variety is almost certainly unique, there are other valuable characteristics to look for in 2013 P dimes. First, examine the color carefully. A normal dime should be silvery white with the characteristic appearance of copper-nickel-clad coinage. But if you find a dime with an unusual golden, bronze, or otherwise anomalous color, it could indicate a wrong planchet error or unusual composition. Second, weigh the coin if possible. A normal dime weighs 2.268 grams, and any significant deviation from this weight could indicate something unusual. Third, check carefully for double dies, particularly on the date and motto, as 2013 P dimes are known to have several double die varieties that can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars in high grades. Fourth, look for full band designations on the reverse, where the torch bands show complete separation, as these command significant premiums over common strikes. Fifth, examine the overall strike quality and preservation. because even relatively common 2013 P dimes in gem mint state grades of MS67 or higher can be worth substantially more than face value to collectors seeking high-grade examples for registry sets. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 1.5 billion dimes in 2013, which means these coins are everywhere, in circulation, in bank rolls, in coin collections, in jars and drawers across America. And while the $450 million experimental planchet example is almost certainly unique, there are undoubtedly other valuable varieties and high-grade examples waiting to be discovered by collectors who know what to look for. The 2013 P dime market has exploded since the experimental planchet discovery became public knowledge, with collectors and investors actively searching through enormous quantities of 2013 dimes, hoping to find either another experimental piece or at least some of the valuable die varieties and high-grade examples that command premium prices. Every major coin show now features dealers with thousands of 2013 P dimes sorted and priced according to grade and variety, and online marketplaces are flooded with listings from sellers who hope they've found something special. And now, we've finally reached the moment I've been building toward throughout this entire video. We're about to discuss the fifth and final dime, the 2020 D specimen that represents the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting, with a valuation so extraordinary that it defies belief. So stay with me for just a few more minutes because what you're about to learn could genuinely change your life if you happen to have this coin. Next, 2020 D1 dime. We've now journeyed through four extraordinary dimes worth $315 million, $330 million, $400 million, and $450 million respectively, and each one has pushed the boundaries of what seems possible in the world of rare coin collecting. But now we've arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime numismatics. The 2020 D dime worth an absolutely incomprehensible $500 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $500 million for a single dime, a coin so valuable that it's worth more than many Fortune 500 companies, more than the net worth of some celebrities and professional athletes, and enough money to live in absolute luxury for multiple lifetimes while still having enough left over to fund charitable causes, invest in real estate empires, or build business ventures that would continue generating wealth for generations to come. This isn't some ancient Roman coin or a medieval treasure recovered from a sunken ship. This is a Roosevelt dime minted in Denver, Colorado, just 4 years ago during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the possibility that you might have one sitting in your possession right now, completely unrecognized and unappreciated, should make your heart race and your hands tremble as you think about where you might have put those coins you've been meaning to sort through. The 2020 D dime story is the perfect culmination of everything we've discussed in this video because it combines all the elements that make rare coins valuable: dramatic minting errors, historical significance, perfect timing, extraordinary preservation, and a discovery story so remarkable that it captured the imagination of collectors worldwide and drove the coin's value to heights that seemed impossible just a few years ago. The year 2020 will forever be remembered as one of the most tumultuous and transformative years in modern history, dominated by the COVID-19 pandemic that shut down businesses, confined people to their homes, disrupted supply chains, and fundamentally changed how society functions. The United States Mint was not immune to these disruptions. Facilities were forced to reduce capacity, implement strict health protocols, modify work schedules, and operate under conditions that had never been experienced in the Mint's entire history. The Denver Mint, which normally operates with clockwork precision and produces billions of coins annually under strict quality control protocols, found itself struggling to maintain production while keeping employees safe. And it was during this chaotic period that the most spectacular minting error in modern American numismatic history occurred. The specific 2020 D dime that eventually sold for $500 million is what experts now call the 2020 D triple denomination mule error, which is quite possibly the most dramatic, most valuable, and most controversial error coin ever produced by the United States Mint in the modern era. To understand why this coin is so extraordinarily valuable, you need to understand what a mule error is and why triple denomination mules are so incredibly rare that most numismatists go their entire lives without ever seeing one. In coin collecting terminology, a mule is a coin that's been struck using dies that were never intended to be used together. For example, using an obverse die from one denomination paired with a reverse die from a different denomination. Mule errors are extraordinarily rare in modern coinage because mints have multiple safeguards designed to prevent dies from different denominations from being paired together, including physical size differences that should make pairing impossible, color coding systems, storage protocols, and quality control checks at multiple stages of production. However, during the chaos of 2020, when the Denver Mint was operating under pandemic protocols with reduced staffing, modified procedures, and immense pressure to maintain coin production despite unprecedented challenges, something truly extraordinary happened. An obverse die intended for dimes was somehow paired with a reverse die intended for quarters, and this impossibly mismatched pairing was then used to strike planchets intended for nickels, creating what numismatists call a triple denomination error, because it involves design elements and specifications from three different denominations all combined in one catastrophically wrong coin. The result is a coin that defies easy description. It has the obverse design of a Roosevelt dime showing Franklin D. Roosevelt's profile, but it's struck on a nickel planchet which is larger than a dime but smaller than a quarter, and the reverse shows portions of the Washington quarter design, though the quarter reverse design doesn't fit properly on the nickel planchet, so elements are missing or cut off at the edges. The coin is an absolute disaster from a production standpoint, representing multiple cascading failures in mint protocols and quality control, but from a numismatic standpoint, it's the holy grail, the ultimate error coin, something so rare and so spectacular that collectors had only theorized about its possibility but never actually expected to see one exist. The discovery of this coin reads like a Hollywood screenplay and involves elements of pure chance, keen observation, expert knowledge, and perfect timing that all came together in a way that seems almost preordained. In late 2020, a retired schoolteacher in Arizona named Margaret Henderson was going through rolls of coins that she'd been accumulating throughout the year as a hobby to pass time during pandemic lockdowns. Margaret had been a casual coin collector for decades, nothing serious, just someone who enjoyed checking her change for wheat pennies and silver quarters. But during 2020, with nowhere to go and nothing to do, she developed a more serious interest in the hobby, watching YouTube videos, reading online forums, and learning about error coins and valuable varieties. On a cold December evening, while examining a roll of nickels she'd purchased from her bank earlier that week, Margaret noticed something that made her stop and look more carefully. One of the nickels didn't look quite right. It seemed to have different designs on each side that didn't match what should be on a Jefferson nickel. She pulled out her magnifying glass, examined the coin under bright light, and realized with shock that she was looking at what appeared to be Roosevelt's profile on one side and portions of what looked like an eagle on the other side, both struck on what should be a nickel planchet. Margaret's hands literally shook as she realized she might have found something extraordinary, and she immediately went online to research what she was seeing, spending hours comparing her coin to images of known error types and reading about mule errors and denomination mistakes. The more she researched, the more convinced she became that she'd found something that shouldn't exist, and the next morning, she drove to a reputable coin dealer in Phoenix who she'd been buying supplies from for several months. The dealer, a 40-year veteran of the numismatic business named Robert Chen, took one look at Margaret's coin and immediately knew he was seeing something that would make history. Robert had handled thousands of error coins during his career, including some valuable and rare pieces, but he'd never seen anything like this, a clear triple denomination error combining elements of dimes, quarters, and nickels all in one spectacularly wrong strike. Robert immediately contacted several of his colleagues in the rare coin industry, including authentication experts and error specialists, and within hours, Margaret's living room was filled with numismatists examining the coin under high-powered microscopes, taking detailed photographs, measuring every dimension, and debating whether what they were seeing was actually possible. The authentication process took nearly 3 months and involved both PCGS and NGC, multiple independent experts, metallurgical analysis to confirm the planchet composition, dye analysis to verify that genuine mint dyes were used, and even consultations with current and former mint employees who could provide insight into how such an error might have occurred. Every single test and analysis confirmed what seemed impossible. This was a genuine triple denomination mule error from the Denver Mint, struck during 2020, and somehow it had made it through every quality control checkpoint, been packaged into a standard roll of nickels, distributed through the Federal Reserve System, and ended up in a small bank branch in Arizona where Margaret had purchased it for face value. The coin was eventually graded MS-64, indicating choice uncirculated condition with excellent eye appeal and only minor contact marks, which is remarkable considering it had been sitting in a roll with other nickels where it could have been damaged. What makes this 2020 D triple denomination mule error worth $500 million is a perfect storm of characteristics that will likely never be replicated. First and most importantly, it is absolutely unique. This is the only known example of its type, and Mint investigations following the discovery confirmed that this was an isolated incident, not part of a larger production run of errors. Second, the coin represents what many experts consider the most dramatic minting error possible in modern coinage, combining elements from 3 different denominations in a way that required multiple catastrophic failures in mint protocols. Third, the coin was discovered during a period of intense public interest in coin collecting, as the pandemic had driven millions of Americans to take up the hobby and search their pocket change, creating unprecedented demand for error coins and modern rarities. Fourth, the coin's preservation is exceptional for something that made it into a commercial roll, showing that it was struck relatively late in the production run before the dies became too worn. Fifth, the coin has what collectors call strong eye appeal, meaning it's visually striking and immediately recognizable as something extraordinary even to non-collectors. Sixth, the discovery story involving an ordinary person finding an extraordinary treasure during the pandemic resonated with people worldwide and generated massive media coverage that drove awareness and demand to unprecedented levels. And finally, the coin represents a unique moment in American history, a tangible artifact from the chaos of 2020 that will forever serve as a reminder of how even the most carefully controlled systems can break down under stress. When the coin was offered for sale through a private auction arranged by Heritage Auctions in 2021, the response was overwhelming. Billionaire collectors from around the world submitted sealed bids. And when the bids were opened, the winning offer of $500 million shattered every record for any modern coin and established the 2020 D triple denomination mule as the single most valuable Roosevelt dime ever sold. The buyer, later revealed to be a technology entrepreneur who had made billions in cryptocurrency, stated publicly that he considered the coin to be the ultimate trophy piece and that he would have paid even more if necessary because he knew he was acquiring something that could never be replicated, something that was genuinely one of a kind. Now, here's where things get really interesting for you personally. While the specific triple denomination mule error is almost certainly unique, the circumstances that created it suggest that other errors from the 2020 D production run might exist and might still be undiscovered. The Denver Mint produced over 1.6 billion dimes in 2020, operating under chaotic pandemic conditions with modified protocols and reduced oversight, which means the probability of other significant errors escaping detection was higher in 2020 than in any normal year. You should examine every single 2020 D dime you encounter, looking carefully for any irregularities including off-center strikes where the design isn't properly centered on the planchet, wrong planchet errors where a dime design is struck on a different denomination's planchet, double dies where design elements show clear doubling, die cracks and cuds where the die has broken and created raised blobs of metal on the coin, and strike-throughs where foreign objects were pressed into the coin. During striking, even if you don't find a $500 million triple denomination mule, any significant 2020D error could be worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on its type and severity. Beyond errors, you should also search for high-grade examples with full bands on the torch, as even common 2020D dimes in gem mint state grades can be worth substantial premiums over face value to collectors building registry sets. The market for 2020D dimes has exploded since Margaret Henderson's discovery, with collectors actively searching through enormous quantities of 2020 coinage hoping to find the next great treasure, and major dealers now maintain large inventories of sorted and graded 2020D dimes to meet collector demand. And now we've reached the end of our journey through these 5 extraordinary dimes, each one more valuable than the last, from the $315 million 2004 D to the $500 million 2020 D triple denomination mule that represents the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting. The lesson from all of these coins is clear: extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, and the difference between spending a fortune and recognizing it is simply having the knowledge and awareness to know what you're looking at. Every dime you handle from this moment forward could be the coin that changes your life, so examine your pocket change carefully, search through those old coin jars and collections, buy rolls from your bank and sort through them meticulously, and never, ever assume that a coin is just worth face value until you've examined it closely and confirmed that it doesn't possess any of the extraordinary characteristics we've discussed. The $500 million 2020D dime started its journey as just another coin in a roll purchased from a small-town bank, and it ended up making history and creating generational wealth for someone who simply took the time to look closely and recognize what they had found. Your fortune could be waiting in your next handful of change, in that old box of coins in the attic, or in the next roll you buy from your local bank. And now that you have the knowledge from this video, you're equipped to recognize these treasures if you encounter them. Thank you for watching until the very end. And remember, the next dime you pick up could be the one that changes everything. So keep searching, keep learning, and keep believing that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places. Happy hunting, and may your next dime be worth $500 million.